3, 2, 1, go. All right, welcome guys. So this is going to be really super simple. So we can jump right into Nomad. So when you open it, you might see this grid here as well. So that's your grid. You see this little square here. This shows you where you are in space. This is just a sphere. So this is the front of the sphere. So we're probably just going to use this just to go back to the front. You see this thin white line. I can see the line is thin now again. Oh no, it's a grid. I prefer when the line is a white thin line, but apparently the horizon line is your red line. So that's just so you know, this is like the horizon line. I don't know why it's like the grid and then it's thin sometimes. Anyway, so let's just take this sphere. And so if you go here, this is the scene menu. This is where all your shapes are. So remember, this is the scene menu, and this is anything you add. This is where it will be. So for example, if you add a cylinder, we're going to use a cylinder for the base. So it adds a cylinder. Notice it's orange. So any shape that you add is going to be unvalidated. So it's going to be orange. That just means you can do some extra things with it before you make it an official shape to make it. So that's just how I explain that. So it's not confusing. We're not going to go into too much of that, but let's go ahead and validate it. So now it's validated. So now you can use all the tools. Remember, you have to validate your shapes in order to use all these nice tools, and they might look like this. You can press this and make them in a nice rectangle. The gizmo moves everything around. So if you want to move things, or if you make another shape, let's say we add a box, then it's just going to be right in the middle. And remember, it's orange. You have to validate it. That's why you don't see these all your shapes here. So let's go ahead and validate the box. So now we can use our gizmo. So this just moves everything around. Let's move this box up using this green arrow. See, we move the box up. Notice there's an orange ring. That just deals with size. And then you have all these other little things which are pretty self-explanatory. These rings, see, green, red, blue. That's to rotate it. These little spheres that you can stretch it. You know, these kind of things, they move it kind of a funny way that I never use. They just kind of get in the way. But that's your gizmo. So you can move it all around. This is how you move it in space. If you want to get crazy, then you can use that little orange in the middle and you can just kind of drag it freely. But, you know, it's good to use these directional things because there's a thing called symmetry. So as you kind of sculpt and get further along into it, you'll want to keep the symmetry, and you want to make sure, like, oh, I want to use drag, and I want to drag, and I want it to be even on both sides. Once you start moving it around, it can be a bit confusing. So that's your gizmo. So this just helps you move things around, you know, anywhere you need them, or make them bigger and smaller. All right, so let's delete. So if we go back to the scene, this is where we handle all of our shapes. So you can press these 3 dots and you can delete it. You can clone. You know, all that stuff is here. A clone just means you just make another one, clone it. Now you have 2. Go ahead and delete that. So now our cylinder. So let's make like a little base. And by base, I just mean like a little platform for whatever we're drawing or whatever we're making. For example, let's say, see how like this is flat. This is kind of how I wish it was. And let's just make that like a surface. So we're going to use this cylinder. We're going to use the gizmo. Let's just take this green sphere and just flatten it like this. We can make it bigger, and we can flatten it again. Just make it nice and small like this. And we'll kind of, you can use front. It's a bit more confusing now because it has this stupid grid, but we just want to line it up with this thin red line that you can hardly see. So we'll bring it right up to that red line like this. And now you can just have like a base. And what I like to do is get rid of the grid, so you can press down here and the grid goes away, because now you have your floor surface, so your bottom surface. If you don't see grid there, it's here in your shortcuts. You can add all these shortcuts. You can see which ones I have that I use. So those are just shortcuts. See, it goes away and it comes back. So now that we have that, let's just take this sphere and move it up with our gizmo. So we're just gonna use that green arrow. And let's kind of stretch it a little bit. We're just going to I make all these like little like kind of shapes that I use in all my sculpts. I'm not really sure why, but I just like them. So we're just going to make a new one. So let's make it a little bit bigger. And let's bring it down a little bit. See, the bottom is like inside that. So maybe I'll move it up a little bit. I think I want to make the bottom a little bit bigger, so a little bit wider on the bottom. So there's a way we can do that using symmetry. So now remember, we have the sphere. Let's go ahead and rename it. So let's go to our scene menu and rename it from sphere to, let's just call it A1. Okay, let's rename this to FLR. So that's just the floor. So now we have A1 and we have the floor. So that's going to be like our body. Okay, so we'll hit front, and now let's use symmetry so we can kind of spread out the bottom. So we'll go to symmetry, and first let's go down to show line. So that will kind of help us see our symmetry points. So right now the line is kind of a cross section in the middle. So that means if we were going to use, let's say, the move tool and symmetry is on here, that means it's just symmetrical. See, that's all it is. So that's symmetry. Very helpful, very useful. But we want to kind of spread out the whole bottom, so we need a line going this way too. So we'll go back to the symmetry. This is the red. The red is the kind of the default. That's the default one, X. But you have green and you have blue. So if we turn on blue, so now you see there's another X. So now symmetry is still on, and it just kind of does that, which is great. But we want to do that towards the bottom. So we're using the move tool. We can make it a little bit bigger maybe. And now at the bottom, why does this not look straight? No, I think it's straight. So now I'm just going to pull out from the bottom a little bit. And see how it kind of just like, now you kind of just have to look around and kind of do it by your eye, and just kind of spread it out as much as you like. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Maybe I'll pull it a little bit out, a little bit further out there. So we have something like that. And we can actually take the bottom and kind of push it up like so. So now it kind of just looks like something sitting on a platform. It's a little bit more round at the bottom. And if you want to get really detailed, you can go in and sort of, let's make move tool a little bit bigger. So move tool, and you can sort of spread it out a little bit more by kind of like dragging down. So these are just like little details you can do, if you want, but I think it looks fine. So now I'm going back to my gizmo, and I just want to take a look at the bottom. So that looks pretty good. Maybe stretch it out a little bit more. I kind of like that. If you want, you can use move, and let's go to symmetry and turn off the blue. So let's say this is the front. Let's say you want to make it a little bit wider. Maybe I'll make the move tool a little bit bigger, and you can kind of make it a little bit wider if you want in the front. But you can make any shape that you want, really. But I think I like this. Maybe a little bit wider in the back. I think I like that. Okay, so I think it's looking pretty good so far for a little simple shape that's sitting on something. Now I make a lot of these, and I make them like sitting next to my characters and stuff. Let's do a little something with this character. So let's go here. Let's add another sphere, and it's right here. So we'll use our gizmo. We'll move it up. You can see that I don't have my tools yet because I haven't validated it, but that's okay. I'll show you why. And now I'm going to move it over here. And then I'm going to make it smaller with this orange ring. So we kind of move it over here. That's kind of cute. I'm going to hit gizmo. It's going to bring up those validation options. Remember, it's still yellow, which means we haven't validated it. We can't use the tools. So I'll tap that, and here's our validation window here. And one cool thing you can do with shapes is you can add a mirror. Now notice that this mirror showed up here. So now we have a sphere under a mirror, and it's mirrored. So now there's two of them. This is great for eyes, eyelashes, legs, arms, anything where there's two. It's great. You can just press mirror, and now you have two of them. You don't have to do one arm and then do the other, or do one eye and then do the other. So it's looking pretty good. Go ahead and validate. So when you go here, just remember that it's a sphere in a mirror. So there's a lot of this stuff you can do. Mirror is a repeater, And I'm not going to go into it, just wanted to show you what that is. Radial, if you want to make something like a pumpkin, or just something where it's like round. An array is like a square, like a row, and radial would just be like kind of like radial. So if we wanted to fill up this circle, we could use radial and make circles all around here. So just play around with those, they're pretty fun. So I'm going to go ahead and validate this, join children. That just means it was one sphere, but now it's going to be this, both of these are just going to be one shape. So for example, now there's just a mirror, and now this is just one shape. So when you move it, it's just going to move at one. Like, sometimes I don't really think too much when I'm sculpting. I just kind of sculpt. They could be like little legs too. Okay, so now we have some little arms there. So let's go ahead and make like a little face for this character. So we're going to go back to here. So we have mirror. So these are going to be, let's just rename them arms, so we can keep everything like together, keep everything organized. Also, you want to save. So I'm going to go here and save. I'm just going to name him A1. So now we saved. Let's go back to the scene. Let's add a cylinder. So now we have a cylinder. Let's hit gizmo, even though it's hidden and you can't really see it. We're going to hit gizmo. We'll bring it up, bring it forward. Notice this is the front, so I just have it tilted so I can see what's going on. So we'll move it forward. Then we'll shrink it. And I want to put it like straight, so like for the eyes. So one little trick, because of course you can go like this and it'll be kind of straight, but if you want to be precise, then just hit snap and 90. There's two snaps here, so make sure it's the snap that looks like the, you know, the V, the little measuring thing. So 90 is there. You can do 45, you can do something else, and that just restricts your movement to 90 degrees. So now it's perfectly flipped 90 degrees. So move it into the face, and we'll tap gizmo again, because we tap gizmo, we haven't validated. So then let's hit mirror again, and then go back to our gizmo, and now we can move them separate, because now remember it's a cylinder and a mirror, so we can move them separately. Okay, so let's move them down a little bit. Move them out a little bit more. And how big or how small? Maybe a little bit bigger. So that looks pretty good. We'll use the red arrow to move them away. Notice that everything is going to be like, it's just going to be mirroring each other, so just concentrate on one. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. Maybe I want the eyes to be a little bit lower. Maybe higher. Oh, I think I like higher better. Okay, so we'll push them into the body. Now, obviously the body is sort of curved, so we're going to use these little rings here to just mimic the surface of the body. So I want to turn it a little bit. Oop, but I can't because I'm still locked on 90, so we'll turn that off. So now we use this blue ring, and we'll kind of just turn it out a little bit, maybe turn it this way with the red ring a little bit, maybe a little bit more out, and a little bit more red. Okay, so now we'll just kind of push it in a little bit, so then it's right on the surface. And you can make it a little bit more perfect if you want. You can sort of just keep tilting it until it's like right on the surface. I think that's good. Okay, so yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So now let's give him like a little mouth. So let's figure out the best way to do a mouth. So I'll show you a little trick to do just kind of like a regular mouth. So let's go back up to A1. Actually, let's go ahead and make these eyes concrete. So here's the mirror and the cylinder. Also, here's another thing you can do. If you want to clone this, you can clone it, and then you can like move it around if you wanted to do something else, or you know, give them 4 eyes or something like that. So you can always clone things in a mirror, and then you'll have, you know, more. But anyway, let's go ahead and tap on the mirror. We'll tap on the gizmo to bring back our options, and we'll validate. So now we validate, join children. So now we can change this to eyes. Okay, so looking good. Looking real good. So now let's make a little mouth. And let's use, so let's add a, let's add a sphere. So let's use our gizmo. So we'll tap gizmo here. Let's move it up so it's like above the head, just so we can see it a little bit better. So let's make it small. Okay, so now what I want to do is use this sphere and I want to stretch it. I want to stretch it out this way. So the way to do that is let's just hit gizmo and let's validate it. So now it's validated. So what we're going to do is use the symmetry to stretch this out. So by default, we're on the X, and that's what we want, the X symmetry. If I zoom in, you can see it's like this. So we just want to pull it like this. So we're going to use symmetry, and then you can see here that it's on auto. So we're going to go to vertex. Oops. And now we're just going to pull it from this red arrow, not the red sphere. We want to use this red arrow, and we're going to pull it out like this. Okay, it's pretty good. Okay, so now we can turn it off, symmetry, and we can put this back on auto. So now we have a shape that we can work with, but let's go ahead and voxel remesh it. And the reason I'm going to voxel remesh it is because I just want it to be its own solid shape that I can manipulate a little bit easier. And I know that might sound confusing, but in the past, sometimes if I use like the move tool on this, let's turn on symmetry. So we're using move, we turned on symmetry, and let's say I want to make a curve in this. So I'm going to push down in the middle. See how it does this weird thing? It does this weird shape. I don't want that. So we're going to take our little shape here and let's go up here. And let's use these little bricks. So we're going to go to voxel. And let's type in here maybe like 150. And let's remesh it. Okay, so now it's remeshed. So now it's its own little shape. So if we use move again, see how it moves very differently. So that's what we want. So let's take the gizmo and just bring it down. This little hot dog actually does look like a hot dog. Bring it forward. Obviously that's kind of big, although I kind of like it. I'm going to clone it so I can just save it for later if I want to change it. So let's rename this mouth. And we'll shrink it. Oh, but see how it didn't shrink in the center? I want it to be in the center. So I'm going to undo with two finger tap to undo. And I'm going to take pivot, center, pivot. The pivot point is the center of your gizmo. So now when I shrink it, it's in the middle. Let's move it up. Let's take move. I'm going to make it quite big. Maybe around like, I don't know, 450 or so. And I just want to move it down a little bit. I just want to give it a little bit of a smile. So now I'll take the gizmo. I think I'm going to shrink it a little bit this way with the little sphere and then just move it kind of into the mouth-ish area. But you notice that it's a curved surface, so it's not really that great. So I just use move and I just sort of push it in the middle. I have symmetry on, so it stays even. So I push it like that and go back to the gizmo and then just move it in like this. I think that looks cute. I like it. All right, so let's make some little, so one thing, I might want to just shrink it a little bit. Maybe even move it up a little bit more. Okay, I think I like that. I want to take these. And let's see, if I move one, so the other one is not moving, but we can just use symmetry because symmetry is automatically down the middle. So once I turn symmetry on, see, it still will use both of the arms. So we use the move tool. And right now we're just on the arms layer and we have symmetry on. So it's just mimicking kind of like a virtual like middle half of the screen. So maybe I just want to pull these down a little bit. Just pull the arms down a little bit, maybe just kind of like make them a little bit more army. And just a little bit more cute, put them kind of into the body a little bit. Maybe I'll make this smaller and just kind of push the top part in a little bit. I think that's pretty cute. Looks a little bit more like arms. And maybe if we want little like feet too, we could always do that. And we could always kind of do it the same way. We'll do add, sphere, and let's use our gizmo and just kind of make little, super simple little feet. So I'll move it up and move it forward so we can see it. We'll shrink it with the orange thing. Let's move it down a little bit. Kind of like that. So we'll hit gizmo to bring up our options, mirror, and then we'll go back to gizmo to separate them. Like this. And now we can just kind of slide them into the body and kind of see where, actually I really like that. I think that's cute. But you have a lot of options. You can always, remember, you can always like flatten it a little bit more, and then you can bring it up a little bit and then move it in. So there's a lot of little options you can do. Kind of like little Kirby feet. You can always make them a little bit wider and bring them in and make them a little smaller. So there's a lot you can do. I like it. So I'm gonna hit gizmo and then I'm gonna hit validate. And I'm gonna go back to our scene menu and tap the mirror, validate, join children. So now these are be feeties, or just feet, if you please. Okay, that looks good. And maybe you also want to do a little puff on the back. So maybe we'll do add in a sphere, gizmo, and we'll just move it back. And you can do like a little, maybe not that small. You can do like a little puff on the back, like this. Or, now that we have that there, let's go ahead and hit gizmo and validate it. And you can use move. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's turn symmetry on. See the little line there? And then you can just kind of pull it. Maybe you want like a little tail that's a little bit more tailish. You can just do something like that. And just give them a little tail. Maybe you want it to be a little bit more like coming up a little bit. You can do something like that. Cute. So remember, if we get rid of this, these parts need to be trimmed. So I'm just hitting this little eye to make it go away. So you have to remember to trim those. So let's take the leg parts. Actually, we can do everything. Let's take the, actually no, we'll stick with the feeties. So the trim tool, here's my trim options if you want to just make sure everything is, looks like mine. But anyway, so the trim tool, we'll use rectangle. And you just make a rectangle, whatever's in the white is gone. So when I trim this, just note that I'm trimming a little bit underneath, right at the surface of that foot. Same thing with here. I want to tap the tail and then do a rectangle underneath, but a little bit, not right at that, not very sharp even. Does that even make sense? You just want to do the trim a little bit lower. Okay, I think that's good. So what do we want to do with the top? I kind of want to give him two little leaves at the top. Ooh, but I have a better idea. I do have a better idea. I think I'm going to make Bulbasaur soon for a Skillshare class. So let's prime you up for that. So we have the sphere. Oh, this is the tail. So let's rename it tail. And now let's go back up here and we'll do add, and let's add another sphere, and we'll just use the gizmo to bring it all the way up. So let's make it a little bit smaller like this, and maybe we'll stretch it a little bit with this green. Okay, so now, okay, what do we want to do here? So let's go ahead and validate it. And let's name this bulb. So that's bulb. So let's add I almost said array. Let's add a radial repeater. So here's our bulb. Add. go down here to repeaters, radial. So now it starts getting interesting. So we're on the radial now, this red radial, and I'm going to rename it bulb radial. So there's bulb radial and then there's bulb. So when you're on bulb radial, this is the radial settings. And it's a little tricky because this is all the way down here. I wish it would just be up here, but that's fine. So right now there's 4. See this little green? There's 4. See these little dots? So when we use the gizmo, it probably won't do anything. And the reason why it won't do anything, this is really confusing. The reason why it didn't do what I wanted it to do is because I'm on the bulb radial. But when you go to the bulb, you have to go to the bulb and then you move it and you see now there's 4 of them. When you go back to the radial, so if I go back to the radial and I just have gizmo, I really think this is confusing because I wish it didn't just show the gizmo. It should show everything. But anyway, you have to uncheck the gizmo to bring all this stuff back. And then you can adjust it. You can make more, you can make less. So let's make like 6. So now we have 6. And of course, if you wanted to there's a lot you can do. You can play around with the other ones. It just makes them like either go above or below, or, you know, it just kind of affects where they go. But right now we're just sticking to this one and it looks pretty good. Let's go back to our gizmo and notice when it's down there, it's not helpful at all. So we'll just go back to our bulb. Now, just to note, we're on this one shape. Remember, this is one bulb in a radial. So this is like the mother bulb. So we're just going to concentrate on that. So let's use move on our bulb. Let's make move a little bit bigger. We don't need symmetry because we don't want it to like both come in. We just want to like manipulate the shape. So when I move this, notice that they all move, which is really fun. So I'm gonna move this in, and then I kind of want to lift it up in the middle. Like that. Just want to make a little shape like that. Okay, so now we have our bulb radial. We kind of have our funny looking shape. So I'm going to use the gizmo. And the reason why the gizmo is here, again, is because we're just on that one bulb. Let's make it smaller. Oh, but when it's smaller, it moves everything. So if we're happy with this, let's just go here and solidify it. So we'll just tap bulb radial. We'll get out of gizmo. We'll validate, join children. So now it's just bulb radial. So let's go to pivot, center pivot, because it annoyingly moves the pivot down there. So now we're good. Now we can make it smaller, you know, or bigger, and it's just going to stay where it is. I'm just going to make it a little shorter. I don't know why. I think that's cute. I don't even know what this is supposed to be, but I think it's cute. It might even look cute if we do snap. It might look cute upside down too. It's kind of cute as well. But I think I want it this way. Okay, so yeah, I think that's pretty cute. I might just keep it like that. I kind of want to make like a little leaf or something, but I might be just happy with how it looks now. And of course you can do little details if you want to. And last but not least, I just want to do something. I always make these little dots over the eyes. So we're just going to make a sphere. We'll use our gizmo to move it up and forward, and we'll shrink it down really small. Maybe around there. I'm going to move it back on the surface of our little bulb guy. I'm going to move it over here. Get out of gizmo and do mirror. So now it's on the other side as well. And I'm just going to use gizmo again and just adjust this one. So we'll move it like here. We'll move it, make it a little bit smaller. Oops, let's go back to there. So let's get out of gizmo and we can validate. So we validate. Let's use symmetry. Let's use drag. So we're using drag now, and I just want to stretch these out a little bit. Just kind of make like, I don't know, these little interesting shapes that I always make. Like this. I think that's cute. And another fun thing we can do for fun, if we want, let's hit front. We can take trim with rectangle. Make sure you're on the eyes, and you can just kind of like trim them too. And sometimes they make him look a little, like they make your characters look a little happier. But this made them really ugly here. So when you get something like this, you might have to just validate, or you might have to do a voxel remesh and just add more geometry to try to clean that up. So let's see if it works. So we're in voxel, we're in remesh. Let's bring it up to like 200 and then hit remesh. And it's a lot cleaner. Not the cleanest, but a lot cleaner. And I think a way, if I wanted to do that even more clear, I should have made these more dense before we did the trim. So let's try that. I'm gonna hit save. So let's make this more dense. So let's go here, voxel remesh, and let's do 200. Let's do 250. We'll remesh. So now they're a lot more solid. It's kind of weird that they kind of are sort of ugly like this. I'm not actually sure why. Is this a boolean? Let me turn that off. Let's see what happens. Voxel remesh. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so here's another thing that you can do. And here's where you can see 3D can be very confusing. But here's another trick. I want to make this clean. So let's go back here. Let's go to multi-res. And let's do subdivide. Let's do subdivide again. Okay, that looks a lot cleaner. So now let's see if we can do the voxel. So we'll go back here, multi-res, we'll go to voxel, and this 248. So now let's remesh. See, it's a lot cleaner. So what we did was we used subdivide, we used multi-res subdivide to add geometry on the inside. So we sort of just beefed it up on the inside, and then we did our voxel remesh. I know that can be confusing, and I don't know how to make it easier in a beginner video like this, but now you know. If you try to make a shape and you try to trim it and it looks ugly, you might have to subdivide, you might have to voxel remesh. I would say play with those, and and soon enough you'll get like a combination. You'll say, okay, like I need to do this or I need to do that. But sometimes you just have to kind of figure out what works best. And you can watch this video and you can see exactly what I did, and then you can try that out. So now I'm gonna hit front again, and I'm gonna use trim, rectangle. So let's see. Oh, see, it trimmed a lot nicer. I only did it on one side because symmetry is on, so it doesn't really make a difference. Yeah, so that worked a lot better. You can also do things like you can use the ellipse if you want to make like a, whoops, let's turn off circle so we can do like a random shape. You can do something like this, trim it this way. Maybe that might look a little bit more organic. And usually after I trim, I voxel remesh again. I'll do it like 200. That's just a shortcut. That's the same as going up here and voxel and remesh. So that's the same. I think that's cute. I like it. I like them. Check out my Nomad Sculpt cheat sheet. You can use round edge. So round edge, we'll just kind of round these off and make it a little bit softer, which is cute. But anyway, yeah, these eyes, I might have to start from scratch with these eyes because they're just like a little bit odd. Oh, you know what else I can do though? To make it easier, you can hide those. You can always add another sphere. You can use Gizmo and you can bring it up. You can use a sphere for the eyes. So we'll move it over to kind of where we like it. Gizmo, mirror. Gizmo again to kind of move it into the place that we want. I feel like they were kind of like here. You can make them bigger, smaller. I think that's good. So yeah, you can do it that way too. they might be a little bit easier to manage. So now when we validate our shape, so we have this here, so we can validate. And here's another thing, since we're here, you can do keep instance, confirm. So now you see like the two things are here. So when you keep instance, that just means you don't have to use symmetry or anything. Like you can just use the move tool, and whatever you do to one will happen to the other because it's instance. So that's what an instance is. So that's just another option that you can try. Let's see what trim does with this. It's cute too. Let's see if we can voxel remesh it and clean up that line at the bottom. Oh, that's much cleaner. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can do to it. There's so much you can do. Just play around with it, have fun, move things around, make things bigger, make things smaller, just experiment. That's really the only way that you're going to learn. So I think that's it for this video. So we did some modeling. If you want to continue this, come back in the next video. I will color it and do some lighting and stuff like that in the next video. But yeah, this is a fun little character. Hopefully you learned some things, and hopefully you continue to experiment. And I would like to see you post these, but a little bit different than mine. I want to see you like do your own thing, add some more things, add horns, make the feet bigger. You can make them taller, make the arms bigger, no arms. So much you can do, so little time. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.